two first-year computer science students at Stellenbosch University, Cedras and Veer Gosai, claim to have uncovered massive fraud in the social relief of distress grant that's administered by the South African Social Security Agency, Sassa. Now, fraudsters are alleged to use unsuspecting citizens' identity numbers in order to apply for the SRD grant, and they then receive the funds in bank accounts that they've set up using the same ID numbers. Now, this fraud is said to involve tens of thousands of fraudulent social relief of distress grant applications. The SRD grant is supposed to relieve, the unemployment burden from this tough economic climate that we're currently in. But to talk to us more about the matter, we joined virtually now by Veer Gosa, who's a first-year GeoInfomatics student majoring in computer science from the University of Stellenbosch, and Executive Manager, Grants Administration at Sassa, Brenton van Vrede, also with us. Gentlemen, thanks for speaking to us this morning. Welcome to Morning Live for both of you. I'm going to start with you, Veer. How did you uncover this alleged fraud in the social relief of distress grant?
Good morning. Good morning. Initially, this all started when me and Joel, we personally checked if our Sassa grants were being stolen, and we were shocked to find out that there were bank accounts on our name opened without our knowledge, and Sassa applications created, and people were actually receiving payments on our behalf.
So this was purely by chance, but then you obviously decided to investigate further. Why and what did you discover?
So we are both computer science students. So obviously we had the necessary skills to, dig deeper. And we entered, the Sassa website and discovered that the API or program that powers the website was slightly unsecure, and it allowed us to check if anyone had a Sassa grant application active on the ID number.
So it was quite interesting, the findings and the conclusions that you came to, Veer, because you and Joel then actually broadened that search by speaking to some of your fellow students. So talk to us about what you did subsequently.
So we managed to do a small survey of about 60 people on campus, and we found out that 56 people on the university campus had fraudulent Sassa applications. As a matter of fact, a lot of them didn't even know what Sassa is. And from that, we thought, this is definitely a larger issue, and we ended up testing all the possible ID numbers for people born in 2005 February. And we found an incredible high rate of Sassa applications at over 91%.
Which is, of course, staggering. But let me bring you in here, Brenton van Vrede. Are you able to confirm, as Sassa, the findings by the two University of Stellenbosch students regarding what is going on with the SRD grants?
Thanks, Sakina, and good morning to your listeners. I think maybe just to give a little bit of context, and I think maybe the unfortunate part in this is that that Veer, Joe, did not necessarily reach out to Sassa to discuss this with us prior to going public. This is not this story has been in the media since January last year. So, for example, if you take the Ground Up article that was released on Monday, Ground Up themselves published this in January last year. We've put significant control measures in place since then. If you look at just the article itself,
Right, apologies there. Seem to have a bit of a technical glitch on that line, and we are in conversation, of course, with Mr. Brenton van Vrede, who is the Grants Administration Manager, Executive Manager at Sassa, and we also have Veer Gosai with us, first-year student at the University of Stellenbosch, talking about how he and a partner of his actually found that their ID numbers were fraudulently used to claim SRD grants. So these SRD grants were being paid but not to them. And they subsequently went on to do a bit of a broader investigation and found some interesting outcomes. So we seem to have lost Mr. van Vrede there. But Veer Gosai, let me come back to you just to talk to us a little bit more and maybe also just touch on what Mr. van Vrede had said. He says that it's a pity you didn't reach out to them. But of course, this goes back to you and your findings and whether you, of course, stand by what it is that you believe you've uncovered.
Yes, and I mean, we did not reach out to Sassa specifically in a media capacity, you know, representing Ground Up. But the biggest concern we had is we did reach out to Sassa. We reached out as normal customers. We phoned the telephone lines. Most of them do not work already, which was shocking to find out. And the national hotline didn't seem to help us. We were told specific things, you know, 2 weeks ago that our issue would be dealt with and that it would be resolved within a turnaround time of a few days. But my friend Joel Cedras and my partner in this is still currently waiting for a response from Sassa. His Sassa grant that he called about 2 weeks ago has not been resolved. His ID number is still being fraudulently used on a fraudulent phone number.
All right. I believe we have Mr. Brenton van Vrede from Sassa back with us. Apologies there to you and to our listeners. Not sure what happened there, but all the same, Mr. van Vrede, you were still speaking and you had mentioned that it's a pity that Mr. Cedras and Mr. Gosai didn't reach out to Sassa. And whilst you were away, Mr. Gosai actually explained that they did reach out to Sassa via the available avenues, but unfortunately had no response. And Mr. Joel Cedras, his account, his ID details are still being used in terms of this SRD grant. But please continue from where you left off.
Thanks, Sakina. So, I mean, I suppose we could take that up with the students. We've also been trying to reach out to them in the course of this week. So hopefully we'll be able to have a sit down sometime with them to figure out, you know, what it is that they've done and so on. But again, you've reached out to us, Sakina. We've responded to you. Ground Up has reached out to us. We've responded to them. Part FM, when they first went live with this interview on Thursday, Friday, we were operating with them as well. So we are reachable. And maybe it's just the channels that the students use that they've not been able to reach us. But as I mentioned, you know, this is something we are very aware of. Identity theft is quite a real challenge that we have to face. And there are significant control measures in place as well to try and prevent this. We do have about 2 million applications. So yes, this is a real challenge. What they pick up is, you know, that people are committing identity theft and they are making false applications with people's IDs. There are police investigations as well currently running on this. There's court proceedings happening in Polokwane. One of my colleagues is in court today with one of the suspects that have been arrested. And so this is something that is happening, but we do believe our control measures that we've put in place are quite stringent. We don't support the sort of suggestions that the students on Ground Up is making that we should reboot the system. We do have quite sophisticated algorithms that run in the background that tries to pick up cases where fraud is being committed. We then suspend those applications. But obviously, we can't say for sure that that is fraud until the actual victim of identity theft comes forward and confirms that that was not the application. We've also had discussions together with the National Treasury with some of the banks that we've picked up where false fraudulent accounts are being opened. Many of them are addressing that, strengthening their FICA process. That is also something that's very worrying to us, that people can, that there's some slack in the FICA processes that some banks apply, not all the banks, but there are some banks that use very weak FICA process that allows students like Joel and quite a few, as mentioned, we've got over 2 million applications that's currently blocked, where we suspect that identity fraud has happened.
Okay. Two things from what you've just said, Mr. van Vrede. Firstly, you mentioned earlier that, Ground Up has been reporting about this since last year. So according to Sassa, what is the scale of the fraud being perpetrated as it pertains to identity theft and the SRD grant? Were you able to establish that?
Yes, so as I mentioned, we've got about 2 million applications, which we suspect, and remember, we can't definitively say it's fraud, because a lot of clients have also come forward and unblock their accounts. So we've got about 2 million applications that we've suspended because we suspect that those could have been fraudulently made. And when a client does that, so as for example, Joel says his ID is one of those IDs, you then have to call our call center. What they will then do is send you a link where you will then have to do a facial biometric to confirm your identity. If you confirm your identity, we then unlock the application and process it further for depending whether you qualify or not.
The other thing that you mentioned, Mr. van Vrede, is that people must come forward if they suspect, that their identity numbers are being fraudulently used. But how would people know? Someone could be using my ID number. How would I know that this is happening?
So if you would come forward if you needed a grant. If you don't need a grant, your number will just remain blocked on our system, and that application will eventually be cancelled. So we've got a process, or basically by law, we are allowed to cancel applications after a period of 6 months once we've put out the necessary communications. So when we suspect you've committed fraud, we would then send you a message saying, please, and because we don't know, so we suspect you've committed fraud, we would send you a message saying you need to go through this process to unblock your account because you think, well, we won't necessarily tell you you've committed fraud, but we'll just tell you you need to do this to finalize your application. If you're a genuine person, you come forward and you would unlock your account and that process would complete itself. And if not, over a process of time, we then delete your application. However, we do also acknowledge challenges that we currently have, noting the client base that we serve. And if you look, as I mentioned, if you look at most of the complaints of the course of the last year, is that the systems are too stringent. But again, you've got to balance the risk of fraud versus accessibility to our clients, which I think was something I commend the students for as well. They acknowledged in their first interview that one also has to make the system accessible. So we haven't quite implemented the cancelling of applications yet because the biometric identification that clients have to do requires you to get a smart ID. So people would first have to go to Home Affairs, get a smart ID if they're still using a green book. And that process may take a little bit longer than for many clients to be able to unlock their accounts. So we've been a little bit accommodating in that aspect to not necessarily then cancel an application, to still allow people who may be genuine applicants to come forward and unlock their accounts. Thanks.
So that notwithstanding, Veer Gosai, speaking to the system that Sassa uses, you guys have been able to get into that system and quite easily by that, it seems. So talk to us about what you found in that regard and the weaknesses that you believe Sassa ought to be aware of.
First thing I want to say is we did not get into the system. Rather, we discovered Sassa used a very badly designed way to test for ID numbers that was publicly available. And when testing the system, I want to just give you a little bit of the data. We tested all 300,000 possible IDs for February 2005 born individuals. And what we ended up finding was about 74,000 positive active applications available. And when we checked the latest Stats SA report, the 2020 report, there were only about 84,000 people born in that month. And this correlates to about a 91% application rate among the people born in February 2005. When we take a look at unemployment statistics for the youth, it's at about 60%. And you know, it's important to take note that disparity of about 30% is highly concerning. I just want to talk a little bit about the systems that are in place at Sassa. And when we look at it, you know, thank you, Brenton, for bringing up the fact that we can call in and that we can, you know, resolve like issues like this. But I fail to believe that the systems in place are actually working, because in Joel Cedras' case, we phoned, we did what a normal citizen is expected to do. And we don't believe Sassa is able to keep, we don't believe Sassa is able to handle the influx of users. And it's very problematic then to say we should not cancel the system when Joel's current Sassa grant and my active Sassa grant are still not registered on my own phone number. You cannot have a system in place which only verifies name, surname, and ID number in order to open up an application.
Mr. Brenton van Vrede, your response to that? Because, and I think importantly, what Veer Gosai says there, they went through the process that any ordinary South African would need to walk through in trying to reach Sassa, not SABC news calling, you know, or ground up calling, but just an ordinary South African and what they are told to do in order to get in touch with you.
Thanks. So yes, Joel is correct. As I mentioned, we've got over 2 million applications blocked at the moment. And you can imagine that is a large amount for our call center to deal with in terms of clients coming forward. Hence, I mentioned previously that even though we are allowed to cancel applications after 6 months, we haven't necessarily implemented that yet, because we do know that, you know, there's a challenge that people, first of all, as I mentioned, it's a challenge for people first to get their smart IDs through Home Affairs, which may take a bit of time, plus as well the resource constraints on our side for them to get through to us. So we do keep that system open as well. However, noting, Joel and Veer, that you're coming from a different place, not necessarily the customer space, but from a sort of ethical hacking point of view, and that's the different standard that you need to be held to. But that said, I kind of lost the questions again. Can you repeat it for me again?
Well, we were basically talking about the systems that you use, and of course, you know, in terms of getting back to clients when they do raise concerns. But we're also running out of time, so let's quickly wrap this.
So just quickly on the systems, right? So yes, we got to understand. So our front portal, which is just the website, right? That allows for easy access. The most information, and I think Veer mentioned it, is that what they've done is being able to access whether or not an active application is available on that person's name. Noting, though, they did not get ID numbers, etc., from us. They got that by hacking a third-party source. So they would have gotten the ID numbers as well as the telephone numbers used for the applications from a third-party source. They would not have gotten that from us. And you need that two combinations to be able to check an application. And the most you'd find out from that is whether or not an active application is available. If you wanted more information, you'd then have to also respond to an OTP. You would get an OTP, which would be sent to that cell phone number. So unless you actually had that cell phone number to get the more detailed information, you would need the actual cell phone number to get an OTP. So again, it's about balancing access, noting that we've got over 16 million clients that engages with our system on a monthly basis. There's no way we can put rate limiters on that. So for example, they ran 700 I think it was 700 a day or something like that.
Correct.
If we blocked it at 700, imagine we've got 16 million people interacting with our website. That means a lot of people would not have access to our website. And this is the active grant. People are logging on every month to check their status, to verify things. So we can't put rate limiters and stuff like that, which you're suggesting, onto our website. It would just block access for millions of people and make their life a lot more difficult. But I can guarantee you that our back-end systems are extremely secure. So yes, maybe if you harnessed people's ID numbers from another source and used it to check to check their details. In other words, you've already committed a crime by stealing someone's identity. You might gain limited information about whether or not that person has an active application.
That unfortunately is all we have time for, but Brenton van Vrede, Executive Manager at Grants Administration, Sassa, and Veer Gosai, first-year GeoInfomatics student majoring in computer science at Stellenbosch University. Thank you so much for your time and, of course, raising a very important issue that I'm sure many South Africans are affected by. Speaking to us there about what they have found, Veer and his partner, about Sassa's SRD grants.